Good morning, Asief. Thank you very much for joining us this morning at our 27-4 Academy session with Black Asset Managers. Today, we're speaking to Asief Mohamed, the founder of Aeon Investment Managers, on his journey within asset management within the South African landscape. Thank you very much for joining us, Asief. How are you this morning?
Oh, very well. I'm glad to speak to you this morning and see you this morning.
Thank you very much again. Maybe, Asief, just to start off, can you just provide us some background of where it all started for you in terms of your career, particularly within investment management?
Yeah, I started when firstly, I'm qualified as a chartered accountant. I started, when I came back from London after working in London for 2 years. I worked for Ernst & Young in Cape Town for 4 years and 2 years in London. And then I started, I came in via the back door as an analyst of unlisted securities for Metropolitan Life Limited then. I was in that division for about a year or so, and I said, look here, this is not going to work. We're doing things wrong here. And they decided to close that. And then what happened is I got in via the back door into Metropolitan division, which is now Metropolitan Asset Management, which was then Metropolitan Asset Managers came, and I got in there and eventually worked myself, as I said, from an analyst of unlisted securities, eventually got promoted to chief investment officer. And I was there for 15 and a half years. And in that period, at the beginning, I realized, I've got to do CFA. I then got my CFA qualification. I didn't know about this industry when I joined it, by the way. So it's all through the back door, because our family, our parents and stuff like that didn't know about this industry existed. But once I got to know the industry, I just loved it. I've never looked back. And from there, then, I worked there. I had lots of ups and downs. In 1999, won a raging bull award. And then what happened is that the asset consultants wanted us to expand their business and the operation because they said they couldn't believe our good performance because we wanted to get more assets to manage. And it did that, and it was a big mistake. And big teams generally don't work, in my opinion. And so what we then did was, and I was there for 15 and a half years. I then, 2 years before I left, I decided, I need to leave. I need to move on. I've been here for a long time. Interpersonal issues and things like that didn't work out. And 6 months before I left, I nearly got fired. In fact, I probably did get fired. And then what happened is they couldn't fire me, and I left on my own terms, and that was a good move. I always said, I need to get off my backside, and the best thing that could happen to me is if I get fired. And that's actually, in a sense, what happened. But in reality, they couldn't. But I left on very good terms, and I took a break for 8 months, and then I started Aeon Investment Management, and that's how it all started.
Yeah, so let's start there, Asief, because you started Aeon in 2005, late 2005. And maybe just take us to the background. What was your thinking when you wanted to start Aeon within the landscape that you are currently, having come from working at Metropolitan for over 15 years, as you kindly said? What was the background? What was your vision in terms of forming Aeon at that time?
Yeah, the reason why I wanted to form that is because, hedge funds was in the vogue then. And I thought, this is a niche opportunity. Let me look at this. Let me manage money. And then what happened is Bright Fund Managers, which was a multi-manager of hedge funds, they then came along and said, look, you don't want, they'll seed the business. They'll seed the actual assets. And they did that. And I started in December 2005. But by then I already had planned a 6 weeks holiday to go to India, travel all over India. And then I said, okay, let me go, got the money, invested the funds. And as I was traveling, I was actually managing money from there over the internet. I could access the portfolios. So, remote working for me didn't start now. It started then already. And that was it. And that was a great experience. And then as I moved on, I decided, I need to expand into long-only assets. And 27-4 was my first client. Then I distinctly remember that Fatima Wada coming to see me. And then what happened? The 2008 financial crisis came. We had a bit of a wobble in the funds, and Bright Fund multi-managers lost some of their assets, and they withdrew from about 10 hedge funds, including myself. But by then I already moved into the long-only assets. And then along the way, also had a family friend of ours join us in the business, Rashad Tayyip, who's now Aeon Investments. He's a good fixed income manager. As young as he is, I learned a lot from him over that 3-year period. And then he joined me, and then we just couldn't get traction in trying to get more and more assets. We saw the asset consultants, the multi-managers, and all of them, we just couldn't get traction. And then what happened is that Aeon Investments made him an offer he couldn't refuse. He then left. But nevertheless, yes, we then grew assets in the fixed in the equity space. I did that, and up to May 2015, we were sitting at, for 3 years, we're sitting at 2 billion rand for 3 years, and we just couldn't grow the assets. But eventually we got one big break. This client we pitched for 4 years in a row, and we got 750 million rand from them, and that then gave us the impetus, and assets now grew to 13 billion rand. But what was it that really made the difference? I think really is patience and persistency, and we focus on investment performance. Obviously, you have to have a very good process. You have to have a very good philosophy that works, and also skill. And I work hard. I still work about 70 hours a week, and that's on average what I do. And it really says that really is the way. Hard work, but don't forget the element of luck that came into it also.
Yeah, you talk about the assets under management and struggling initially to break through that 2 billion mark. How was that in terms of the staff morale, and also in terms of what were the challenges in trying to navigate around getting more assets? Because Aeon in the last 3 to 4 years has grown exponentially, but it's obviously, as you've mentioned, it's been a patient journey that you've obviously had to embark on within yourself as a founder of Aeon and also as a team. So how was that in terms of the mindset? Because now obviously there's quite a lot of asset managers, and at the time when you were started off in 2005, there were only a handful of yourselves that were around in terms of black asset managers. So how was that in terms of trying to break through that 2 billion mark in terms of, and getting assets and only being able to get assets, or vast amount of assets, about 5 or 6 years later?
Yeah, so the one thing that I need to mention is for the first 10 years, I hardly took a salary from the business. So whatever money we made, we paid the staff. So we kept the staff happy. There was just about 3 or 4 staff members then. We made sure we did that. We hardly took, for example, when we traveled to Johannesburg to see clients, we shared a room, bed and breakfast, paid 200 rand for the room as such, to try and save costs. So we're quite frugal, and it's also a lot to do with my upbringing. I had to work every school holiday, every weekend. So I know what it's not to have any money as such. So we're quite frugal in what we did, but we looked after our staff, and that was important. We paid them. I remember 1 or 2 years where I actually took my own money to pay one of the staff member a bonus outside of the company's resources, because we didn't have enough money in the companies. But we always, every year, with that tried to show a profit in the business, even if it's 1 rand. So we never had a loss in the business as such. But but we made sure staff is happy, and today the staff is also happy, to the extent that today, let's say about 2 or 3 years ago, staff members could achieve 14 months salary as a bonus. We now employ 8 staff members. In this week, we're hoping to make offers to 2 more staff members, so we'll have 10 staff members, and we pay them reasonably market-related salaries, and with the prospect of earning significant bonuses, but also they all have equity in the business, and we treat our people well. We treat them with respect. We treat them with, we really do that, and that, I think, is the key more than anything else, is to keep everybody on board and reward them and pay them before the sweat is dry.
No, thanks very much for that. Maybe just jumping on to the next question in terms of the advice that you would give to other emerging and startup asset managers that are coming into the field and have been coming into the field for the past 5 to 10 years, because they're facing some of the challenges that you faced when you first started Aeon in 2005. What are some of the advice and the challenges, or some of the key ingredients that you would give to them in terms of not just being an investment professional, but entrepreneurship within the asset management landscape?
Yeah, the one thing I think that they should do is really manage expectations. Normally they think they can start tomorrow and get funds under management. I think it takes at least 2 to 3 years before you get, and this is a longer period now to get assets under management. Before it might have been 2 years or so, probably now 5 years. And to get to break even, I think it will also take you about 10 years. The other very important thing is, when it comes to actually the business, is not to overspend on flashy offices, flashy cars, that type of thing, and make sure you live frugally, that you can actually go through the hard times and you can manage, and you've got enough resources to last for 5 years. That is crucial, because you can just get despondent in the first year or 2 and try not to give up. But you've got to have enough resources to be able to survive at least 5 years. And that's the key thing. You've got to have persistency. You've got to have tenacity to be able to do it, and do it with honesty and integrity. Try not to take shortcuts. And I think ultimately you will be rewarded, but also don't sell something that you're not capable of. Be very honest in what you can and cannot do. And I think people need to now understand that they need to have experience in investments, because investments you just can't learn overnight. You've got to have experience. You've got to make mistakes. And generally at the other institutions, or other places you work, whether it's big or small institutions, you can learn from them and you can learn from the mistakes you make. And just remember, when it comes to stock selection, if you get 60% right, just remember you got 40% wrong. You're actually doing very well. So learn from your mistakes, be self-aware, and be honest with yourself about where you're getting it right and where you're getting it wrong. And don't, take shortcuts. Don't tell people that you do research when you don't research, when you're basically just gambling. And honesty and integrity is the key more than anything else.
No, thanks very much for that. And that just leads me to my last question, Asief. You'll be turning 15 this year. Aeon Investment Managers will be turning 15 this year. And you mentioned it's been quite a challenging but also a rewarding journey. Where to next for Aeon in terms of yourself, in terms of your staff, in terms of the firm that you founded 15 years ago? Where to from here?
Very importantly, what we are doing is, and I've done this for a very long time as I've been involved in the Financial Sector Transformation Council, I want this firm to reflect the demographics of South Africa, both in terms of race and gender. From a gender perspective, we are there already. From a race perspective, we're moving on there. The two people hopefully will come on board will be Black African, and so to help us in that journey. That's important. The staff must be owners in this business. All of us must be owners in this business. And the other thing that's very important is to diversify. We've got a fundamental active equity product, which is very successful. We've got a multi-asset equity product, a multi-asset product, which is also very successful. And it's doing well in terms of performance-wise. But we've also got a product that's doing really well called the Aeon Smart Multi-Factor, and we want to take that to a global level. We've been running the fund for about at least 7 years. It's very successful in the South African market, but we want to take it on a global level, and we want to grow the assets in that environment. So we're currently targeting by the end of this year, 15 billion rand. Hopefully we'll get there. It's another 3 months to go. But then thereafter, it's not about the growth in assets. It's about investment performance, the net return after fees to the client. And that's the very important part that we're looking for. It's ultimately the client. We've got to serve them. We've got a high obsessive culture in terms of client service and getting great and exceptional investment performance for them over the long term.
So you're targeting, in your 15th year, you're targeting 15 billion. So it's been quite a long but rewarding journey that you've had, Asief. And I just want to thank you very much for coming onto the session that we're having this morning, for your advice, and just hopeful that other asset managers who are starting off, who are emerging, and who are also mature can take some pointers on terms of the session that we had this morning. Thank you very much, Asief, and all the best in terms of the next phase, next 15 years for Aeon Investment Managers. Thank you again.
And thanks to the help from 27 for also, that's very important. Thank you.